Hi friends, this is Will with Sanctuary Gardens. Normally Jolene does these videos, but today we're focusing on the compost. Jolene is the one with the green thumb, I have the brown thumb, so I'll be doing this video. So what I'm going to start with is showing you our compost setup. What we have is just basic cinder blocks. It's real easy because you can just stack them wherever you want. If you ever need to add more or move them, you can easily. It's not a permanent structure. There's a lot of other setups. There's turning barrels. There's worm composting, which is its own thing. Many different ways to do it. There's pre-made kits you can buy. I like this because, again, it was easy to build. It's also easy to access. I've seen ones where you're having to dig in like this, and that's a lot of work, you know, on the arms and the back to do that. This I can get right into. So the reason you need two compartments is you'll have one that you're adding to, which is this one right here right now. This we're adding all the new kitchen scraps, you know, plants you've pulled up, etc. But once you're done adding to that, then you're gonna have to turn it and let it settle. And that's this third one right here. So you need two because while one is settling, you need another compartment that you can still throw any new things in as you go. Basically every Friday, I grab our compost scraps from our kitchen. And what we have is this little bucket right here. See this here, right, hangs on the inside of our cupboard under the sink. So it just stays right there and opens up. We throw stuff in there. This isn't actually Friday, so it's not full right now, but it would be the same essentially. Kitchen scraps, like we just talked about, these are what we would call our green. That's your nitrogen-rich component of the compost. That's what most people think of as what they add to the compost. Kitchen scraps, plants, grass clippings, etc. This I'm going to use for what we would call brown in compost terminology, and that's going to be your carbon dense stuff. So that's going to be like shredded paper, torn up cardboard, dried leaves, anything that's already like dead. So I come out here with my this is a digging fork from Ace Hardware. Anything like this is fine. I like the digging forks because the tines are a little thicker than like a pitchfork, and I like that. So the other important component to composting is turning it. Because what happens is those microorganisms that are going in and breaking down the compost, they basically break into different layers, and by mixing it, you basically mix up that ecosystem and make them start moving more, and they break things down better. So the more you turn it, the quicker your compost is going to break down. Once a week is adequate, definitely, but you can do more. The first thing I'll do, this compost, before I add in the new stuff, is I'll do a turning. So I'll get in there and just kind of mix it around. This one, I just started pretty fresh, so it's not very full yet, so there's not a lot to mix. You can see I've been using leaves for my brown, and you can see some of the orange peels and stuff in there. And then what I'll do is I'll kind of push a little bit to the side, and then I'll take the green, whatever I'm adding, and I'll throw that in there. So the reason I kind of push this to the side is because if you have any raccoons, or for us even dogs, if you have the fresher stuff on top still, they're more likely to come and get it. So that kind of covers it at least some. And then what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna add your brown. You want 2 to 3 times as much brown as you have green. If the compost isn't breaking down very quickly, that maybe that I have too much brown and I'll stick more on the 2 end. If I feel like it's breaking down too quickly or is getting smelly or mucky or anything like that, then I'm gonna add more brown, more in that 3-to-1 ratio. Now you can certainly take whatever you put the green in and just measure it with that. Now this was about half a container there. I know it's about 2 of my handfuls of shredded paper is a full container. So I'm gonna do 3 of these handfuls to get about a 3-to-1 ratio. Now this shredded paper just comes from junk mail, whatever else. We shred it up and it's good to go. It's pretty moist out, so I'm not gonna water it a lot. You do want to keep your compost wet, but not overly damp. If I am adding water, and sometimes I will with the shredded paper anyways, I will take just a little bit and basically just water after. The reason I'm just going to water this very lightly right now, not because I think it needs water, but because I don't think it's going to rain the rest of today. And so if I leave the shredded paper there dry and any wind comes, it's going to blow it away. And then that's it. And then I'll leave that till next week. Next week when I come out, I'll turn this and then repeat the whole process. This is the second compartment. What this is this is what I'm not really using right now, but this one and the fourth one both were when we had a lot of stuff coming out of the garden all at once, and I couldn't fit it in the compartment I was using. So I stuck it in there, stuck the appropriate amount of brown in there. So I'll kind of turn that too, just to keep it breaking down. And then when I finish this one, then I'll actually start adding new compost to this, and it'll be it'll already be partially started. It's amazing how much compost breaks down. I mean, I don't know how many times, but I'll add multiple times the size of this of material to it. But because as it breaks down, it gets more dense and more dense, I only end up with, you know, a cinder block or two high of actual compost there, which is quite a bit when you actually sift it out. This is the third one. I'll be honest, I don't love how this one looks. We just had our baby 6 weeks ago, so I didn't do as much in preparation for the settling. So it doesn't look quite as broken down as I might hope. But with the gardening season coming up and the time I need for this to settle, this is what I would call good enough. Basically, what you want is you stop adding to it at some point, but you continue to turn it. So it'll continue to break down. Now, the speed of things breaking down, basically, like I said, comes down to mostly turning and size. So size being how big are the things you're putting in there. The more you chop things up, the faster the compost will break down, but it takes more time to prepare that on you as you put it in there. You can certainly throw in huge things, you're just gonna be waiting longer. So I turned this all the way through January. Now, once you're done turning it, and you're done turning it when the compost looks fairly uniform throughout, and that's where this looks okay. I mean, if you look at this here, you can see, I mean, that's mostly just compost, but you can see, especially from the top here, there is some of the paper bits still in there. I would prefer to see those broken down more. There's some things that will still be in there, some sticks and whatnot, but we'll sift that out before we actually use it, and then I'll throw it at the base of the next one we start. Now, they say you're supposed to let compost settle for 6 to 8 weeks before using it. I have no idea when to do 6 weeks or when to do 8 weeks, so I just do 8 weeks. So February and March, this will settle, and we'll be ready to use it in April when we need to be adding some more stuff to the beds. So I'm not gonna turn this because it's done being turned, and this is just breaking down. It does nothing but sit here right now. And I just make sure it maintains the right moisture. In the dry season, the summer, I take the watering can, and we have a rain barrel, and I just take that back, 1 watering can full on each compost area, depending how big they are, more or less. And then if it's the wet season, and I'm gonna do that this week, but I'm probably not gonna do it today actually, is I'll cover it with a tarp. What I do is every day I come out and I look at the weather on my phone and I see what the rain is gonna be like this week. And like a lot of the year, it's gonna rain every day. So if it's already wet and damp, I'm gonna cover it so it doesn't get too wet. You don't want it just soaked through, but don't want it to be dry either. It's gonna rain a couple times a week. I'll just leave it uncovered. It's good for it to get some moisture and air. During the summer months when it's dry, I leave it uncovered pretty much the whole time. And I just keep this tarp here behind, and I'll just pull this over, and then I'll just tuck it in with the blocks. Same thing on the other side, and it'll just kind of cover the whole thing there. We're gonna head into the garage, and we'll show you what the finished compost looks like, and how we store that, and also how we sift it before we store it in the garage. So you don't need to store your compost, and in fact, we usually don't. We use most of our compost right away after it's ready to be used, but this time I think this was completely full, and so we've used some of it, but we had more than we needed, so we're just saving this till the start of the next season. This is nice and broken down, pretty uniform. Looks real pretty. You can see some dry spots here. So with storage, you're free to store your compost. Just don't cover it, just leave it open in something like this, and then just don't let it dry out. So since this is just a little bit of dry, I'm just gonna take this. So the question is, why does compost need to stay moist? And that's because we talked about the microorganisms breaking down, same thing. You don't want it to be dead. Like, this should be somewhat of a living ecosystem still. How do we get to this where it's been sifted is we use this fancy contraption that I made. Don't need to hodgepodge it together the same way I did with random pieces of wood, but it works. Put some mesh, I think this is probably 1/2 inch mesh. You don't want it to be too thin because then you won't be able to sift through it very easily. And for this, I just made it the size of our wheelbarrow, because what I do is I just set it on top there, and then this would be back at the compost area, but I'll take the shovel with the unsifted compost, I'll throw it in there, and then I'll just kind of I'll just kind of use my hands or shake it and let it kind of fall through. This has already been sifted, so there's nothing left. But this is where I'd be left with those sticks or any large things that didn't break down. If there are things that aren't supposed to be in there, I can certainly pick them out, but mostly they're just things that aren't broken down, and I can use that for the start of the next compost compartment. So that is the basics of composting, the way we do it. I'll try to put out some more videos with some of the more of those details about what to do if your compost is breaking down too quickly or getting smelly or not breaking down fast enough. If you have, you know, insects you shouldn't, like little flies and stuff like that, or you want good insects in there. What kind of things to put in compost, more different ways to compost. We could even talk about some. I'm certainly not an expert in that, but we can go through some of the basic outlines there. So we'll try to get that together for you. But that's it, and watch out for those videos. God bless, and go out and compost something.